Hello, my name is Gregory Parks, and welcome to ConLink. Our next guest is a writer of poetry, speculative fiction, and literary criticism. She writes for Tor.com, The New York Times, NPR Books, a winner of Hugo, Nebula, Locus, and several poetry awards, as well as co-author of an upcoming novella with Max Gladstone titled This Is How You Lose the Time War. Please welcome Amal El-Mohtar. Thank you for joining us, Amal.
Hi, it's my pleasure.
Hi, beautiful. So, thank you for joining us. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Beautiful. So, just before we were talking about this upcoming novella, and I would like to know more and like to have our watchers know more about this novella that you're working on with Max Gladstone. Please tell us about that.
Oh my gosh. So what was our elevator pitch? It's an epistolary time travel spy versus spy story. So you've got these two excellent time traveling super spies named Red and Blue, and they're on opposite sides of a time war, and they start writing each other letters as initially kind of a taunting, haha, I foiled your plans kind of thing, but it swiftly escalates into something more dangerous to both of them, and it's a ton of fun, and I'm really, really excited about it.
It sounds like fun. When you're talking about spy versus spy, it's like, oh, this could be, could be hilarious.
Yeah. Like John le Carré meets Doctor Who via Jane Austen? No, Jane Austen's a bad comp, but yeah.
Marvelous. So, what was the thing that made you fall in love with sci-fi and fantasy?
Oh gosh, definitely a combination of The Hobbit and Star Trek: The Next Generation. Yeah, I read The Hobbit when I was like 7 years old, and I completely fell in love with it. I was reading it in Lebanon as well. So it was this kind of interesting crossroads of a lot of different things. Actually, it's occurring to me, before Star Trek, what I super was into while in Lebanon at the age of 7 was Doctor Who novelizations, which I read without knowing that there was a television show. So this would have been like the early 90s, like between 1991 and 1993. So I was reading The Hobbit on the one hand and these Doctor Who novelizations on the other hand. And it was basically like everything I was reading in English was contributing to my geekiness that was going to grow from there.
So now with that information about the Doctor Who novelizations, what did that do for you when you were introduced to the television show?
So remember, this was like 1993. I didn't know that it was a television show literally up until the reboot with Eccleston. So that was like, what, 2004?
Around there. It's foggy for me by this point.
Literally, I somehow managed to go 10 years at least without knowing that it was a TV show. In fact, to my keen embarrassment, when I learned that they were making this reboot, I didn't know it was a reboot at all, so I went to my friends and said, oh my god, I'm so excited. They're making my childhood books into a TV show. And these friends just kind of looked at me like, you sweet summer child. So, and I learned then that there was like an epic 40-year history of this show, which was great in the sense that I had a lot to catch up on. But yeah.
Which is marvelous. Like, you get more stuff.
Really good at avoiding spoilers.
Oh yeah. which is another skill of its own these days. So you're well practiced at that. So, what is your favorite non-writing project that you've done?
Ooh. Favorite non-writing project. Gosh. Does it have to have like nothing to do with writing? Like if I say
It
a
can be.
theater project, is that cheating?
I will say it's totally allowable because it's outside of your standard wheelhouse. So go ahead, run with it.
Sure. So once upon a time, my friend Ruth Ann Edward and I put on a fringe show. Do you guys have a fringe?
Yes, we have a
Yes.
fringe. It will be happening a month after CONvergence.
That's awesome. I know Minneapolis has this like enormous theater scene. I just know if it manifested in the same way. So we've got this fringe show that happens in Ottawa. It's part of like a Canada-wide fringe that's rolling from city to city. So Ruth Ann and I decided we were going to put on a sort of harp and storytelling version of The Lady of Shalott by way of like Tennyson's Elaine of Astolat. So there was like I wrote some music for it, and Ruth Ann was doing the storytelling, and I was doing the music, and it was an amazing experience. It was really delightful, and I'm reaching for it now. Like I'm sure there are other things that I've done that are not writing related that I'm really proud of, but I don't think I'd done anything like that before or since. So it remains like this kind of magical thing that happened to me in my head.
Oh, so you mentioned harp and writing music. Please talk more about that. Like how does music figure into your life?
So I play the harp. The reason I play the harp is because I became obsessed with Lorena McKenna at the age of like 14 or 15. And to my parents' joy and chagrin, I was like, I want to play the harp. That's the instrument that I want. So on the one hand, it meant that they didn't have to suffer through a kind of violin period of like squeaky, horrible badness. But they did have to rent me a harp. So it was a little impractical. But it's basically impossible to make a harp sound bad. So whenever I was practicing, they were just like, oh, what a lovely ethereal sound, occasional buzzing. But so I started when I was around 15, I think. And I really kept at it up until I was in my early 20s, at which point I started traveling abroad a lot and lived abroad for several years. So at that point I sort of fell away from regular practice. But it's still something I'm always kind of on the cusp of getting back into properly. But I with my friends C.S.E. Cooney and Caitlin Paxson, am part of this performance collective called the Banjo Apocalypse Crinoline Troubadours. And like Caitlin plays banjo as well as harp. We all sing. So periodically we'll get together at cons and put on an impromptu variety show of some kind. That actually would be another non-writing thing that I'm proud of, except that we write our songs. So yeah.
Well, music writing is different than novel writing and poetry writing. So marvelous. I'd say that's 100% valid. Beautiful. Well, thank you for taking the time to speak with us this afternoon, and we look to seeing you again at CONvergence.
Awesome. I'm really, really excited about it.
Beautiful. Thank you. My name is Gregory Parks, and you have been watching ConLink.